Should preachers have airplanes? Hello, my name is Dustin Barker. Thanks for joining me today as I cover a fun topic of should preachers have airplanes? Or maybe I could be even more broad and say, should Christians have airplanes? Let me start by asking you a question. Who invented airplanes? You might say the Wright brothers, but I would say God. Without wisdom from God, humans could do nothing. God is light years ahead of us. Our best technology is probably like the stone tablet to God. God drops wisdom into men and women to invent things in the earth. Cars were God's idea. Homes were God's idea. Electricity, God's idea. Airplanes, God's idea. Before a man or woman ever invented something, God had the blueprints first. The devil did not invent airplanes. The devil is not a creator. He can only pervert things. What does it mean to pervert? It means to twist. He cannot create anything, he can only twist what God has already created. For example, God invented the internet and phones that can connect us all over the planet. Like, where are you watching? I'd love for you to comment right now. Let me know where you're watching from. And that's the power of technology, that God has connected us all over the planet. So why did God really make internet and phones and all this technology? For the gospel, to share the good news, to get everyone everywhere to hear preaching about Jesus. However, how much filth is on the internet? I saw a statistic that around 35% of internet downloads are pornographic. Satan has twisted the internet that was created with good intentions and made a lot of it very evil. The internet's not bad, the devil's just trying to use it for evil. God created airplanes. If God invented them, what are they for? They absolutely are beneficial for travel and to see family and to save time and to see the beautiful earth that He created for us. But why would you think God didn't intend for airplanes to be used to preach the most important message in all of human history? Mark 16:15-16, He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel, the good news to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned." Why do you believe God would not want the people who are preaching the most important message on the earth to have a piece of equipment that can help them get to more people and get there faster? What else were they invented for? Well, Dustin, why can't they just fly commercial like everyone else? If you saw their schedules, you would understand why. I mean, I was only in 7 churches in 6 states last year, and I realize how difficult it can be because you are limited to when those airlines have available flights. That means you can only fly at times they offer, and you can only go to airports they let you, and you are limited to their delays, their cancellations, not to mention all the time you have to waste getting to the airport, getting there early, waiting for delays. Some of these preachers are traveling to 3 or 4 states a week and multiple countries in a year. If they want to do what God has told them to do and still have time for their family and their own lives, they don't have time to sit at the airport for 10 hours a week. Here's what I'm trying to get you to think about. Why wouldn't God want a preacher to have an airplane? What would be wrong with it? Maybe you'd say, well, Dustin, that is a lot of money and it should be given to the poor. You don't know who you're being influenced by when you say things like that. In John 12, we read, "Then Mary took a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped His feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But one of His disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray Him, objected, 'Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages.' He did not say this because He cared about the poor, but because He was a thief. As the keeper of the money bag, He used to help Himself to what was put into it." The same story in Matthew 26 says, "Aware of this, Jesus said to them, 'Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me.'" The average wage in America today is around $50,000 or $70,000, give or take. Imagine spending $50,000 just to pour it on someone's feet. This woman poured a year's worth of wages on Jesus' feet, and Jesus called it a good thing. Jesus didn't condemn the woman and say, "You wasted this." Judas was a hypocrite and a thief. He didn't care about the poor. He was jealous and he wanted the money for himself. Now, when you see someone who has a nice car or a nice house, if you start thinking, well, they don't need all that, they should sell some of it and give it to others. Be careful who you are imitating. Some people are so hypocritical and they don't even realize it. Imagine you see a pastor drive by in a $100,000 car and someone saying, "Oh, that's too much." Well, how much is too much? How much is a too expensive car? 100,000, 80,000, 50,000, 30,000? Who gets to draw the line? Are you the judge? Am I the judge that decides what is too much? Well, they don't need all that. You don't need 5 pairs of shoes. Sell 4 of them and give them to the poor. You don't need a $15,000 vehicle. Sell it and get a $5,000 vehicle. Do you see why this is hypocrisy? We are not the judge. If someone else does something wrong, guess what? That's between them and God. We need to focus on ourselves, not them. Now, are there people out there that are abusing people and being dishonest for greedy gain? mean? Yeah, they're out there, but God will deal with them. Proverbs 13:11 says wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished. God will take care of it if they're doing it wrong. People that mistreat others for wealth will stand before God someday, but not every preacher or Christian who has nice things was dishonest. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't bad ones out there, but let God deal with that. I know there's some preachers that say God told them that he wants them to have an airplane. And then there are people that make fun of them and say, yeah, right, God didn't tell you you need an airplane. Well, it's not you and my job to decide if God did or did not tell them that. If God didn't, guess what? They're going to stand before God someday and give an account. But what if he did and we're mocking them for it? Am I the judge? Are you the judge? Do we get to decide what God told other people? Do we put ourselves in a seat of God and say, God didn't tell them to get a private jet? Be careful. You are on dangerous ground to assume what God would tell others. Who is doing some of the most important work on the planet? It's preachers who are sharing the gospel, the good news. Jesus saves, Jesus heals, Jesus redeems, Jesus delivers. He has plans for your life and he's coming back for us someday. Shouldn't they have the best equipment? Why do alcohol companies and drug companies and cigarette companies get to have the best equipment, but a preacher of the gospel can't? If God invented airplanes, shouldn't they be used for the single most important message the planet has ever heard? Romans 10:14-15 says, how then can they call on the one whom they have not believed in, and how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? This is all speaking of Jesus. And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. The most beautiful feet are the ones that bring good news, and there is no better news than Jesus. And let me end with this. God's a big God. He is able to help preachers buy $20 million jets and still feed the poor. It doesn't have to be an either or. And really, what are planes? They're just metal, plastic, rubber, and glass. Same materials as a car. Do you think that's a big deal to God? God doesn't care what we have, he cares what has us. God has a purpose for your life, and he doesn't mind if you have a nice car, a nice home, the best equipment. He wants to give you things, not just to get your assignment done, but also things to enjoy. And as you seek his kingdom, he will add things to you. Matthew 6:33 says, but seek first his kingdom, his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So do I think preachers should have airplanes? If God created them, and the most important business is God's business, then why shouldn't they?